Is anybody here? Share screen. Is anybody here? Yeba, hello. Here we go. Okay, so we have a few people joining. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes. And I see that no one joined before the time, which is a new one, third time lucky. So thank you very much for following the instructions, because we're using Zoom webinar, which, as it's free, is less than perfect. And yeah, if you join early, then the time starts, and when we run out of time, we run out of time. So we're absolutely fine today, so we can do the full 40 minutes. So let me just, so while we wait a minute or two for other participants, just make sure that you can find the chat box. For me, if I hover my cursor to the top, there's a box which says more, and I can click that and find chat, because we will need the chat box so that you can interact with me. So it's not a lecture, it's a conversation. So Giovanni, thank you, Giovanni. It's pronounced John, no? Pronounced Johnny. Okay, so we will wait for 30 seconds and then we will start. Just so other people have a chance to join the room. So I don't know, what would you like me to do for 30 seconds? I can sing, I can dance.
A bit of singing, please, James.
Can you turn your microphone off, please, Robert? That will only put me off my stroke. Thank you very much. Okay, how many are we now? Let's have a look. Participants, lucky number 7. All right. Well, do you know what? We'll begin, and then if other people join in later, then hopefully they won't get too lost in where we are. So as I say, we only have 40 minutes, so it's going to be quite snappy, but I also need you to participate back. As I said a little bit earlier, it's not a lecture, it's a conversation. It really is. I can learn as much from you as hopefully you'll learn from me, which is why I do this. Hello, Marina. I have your Latvia mug here. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's begin. So media literacy, something which is very, very important. And before I do start, just because we might not have time at the end, say thank you very much to Robert Buckmaster for organizing this with me. You're very lucky to have him in Latvia, you know, and being as active as he is. And also thanks very much to my sponsor, Matteo Perifano, whose album Uomo Europeo is out now. He just bought me pizza for lunch, so he's sponsoring this webinar. Okay, so the first question is why? The first question when you wake up in the morning should be why. And it depends how you say it. It could be a desperate why, but hopefully it's a more positive why. Why do I wake up in the morning? Why do I go to work? Why do I do this job and not something else? Now, it's probably not for the money. If you're anything like most people, most English teachers I know, you know, it pays, but there are more important reasons than that. So using the chat box, I'd like you to look at these 4 possible reasons that you teach, okay? And just type in the letter. So using the chat box. There's a spelling mistake there. Very bad form. There we go. Okay, Marina is a C. Anyone else? I know there's more of you there, so you can minimize Facebook. D. Giovanni, what is your D, please? What is your something else? And Robert, maybe you could type a few words about why you chose A. Yeah, indeed. Okay, so there's no correct answer here. I'm not preaching to you. I realize that everybody does this job for a different reason, and the variety makes it interesting. What I'm saying to you today is we're gonna go through a lesson plan to teach media literacy, okay, which is, to explain it very briefly, is giving students the tools to think critically about the information that they receive. So for me, this is teaching language and life skills. If you wanted to take the lesson and just focus on the language elements, fine, there's lots of vocabulary, different grammar structures and all this. But in this lesson that we're going to go through, the language and the life skills, the critical thinking element, the what do I do with this avalanche of information online, they're very much joined together. So you don't have to choose. A lot of the time you can find a very healthy combination, in my opinion. Yes, Giovanni, you need to watch Giovanni Licata's talks or webinars on teacher identity, learner identity, another time. When they come up next time, I'll share them with Latte members. They're really transformational, very, very inspiring. Okay, so we'll start with a quiz. Now, this time there is a correct answer. All right, so which one of these would you consider a new social development since the year 2000? Again, using the chat box, if you can find it, type in your answer, A, B, C, D, E. Congratulations, you've won $1 million. Yeah, I mean, it's a disingenuous question. Of course, the major social change since 2000 has been the connection to the internet, the widespread connection to the internet, the popularization of the internet, how we are connected, especially teenagers. Their life is so at one with the internet that it's very difficult to separate out their identities. They are who they are online. They learn everything they have, not everything they have online. Hopefully that we teach them something as well in the classroom, but it really is becoming a part of us. We download our memories onto the internet. So I'm not going to rant, okay? It's Sunday. I need to try and be a bit more peaceful. But what we're told oftentimes is that the 21st century skills of the ELT world are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. These are important, let me be clear. These are important skills, but they are not 21st century skills. They are first century skills, okay? They are first century skills. So the fact that they're wrapped up into the 4 C's to, you know, it's a fad, that's what I'm saying. These are life skills. These are very basic life skills, but they don't prepare our students specifically for the world we live in today, which is an internet-based world. So by all means, include these in your lessons, but I am not convinced that they are anything more than a cheap fad. Okay, this is not a cheap fad. Sorry, the writing's a little bit, it's not very clear, the writing, but you can see the use of internet users. So it goes from, sorry, the number of internet users. If you look at the year 2000, there are, I can barely read it, 400 million internet users, and we finish in 2016 on 3.4 billion. So 2 years ago. So I imagine the number is far beyond 4 billion now. So this is the new reality that I would like to address in my four-walled classroom. And hopefully the students will take something out of those four walls that will be very truly valuable to them, not just as English learners, but also as humans navigating this avalanche. Okay. So this is my brother, Johnny, and he came to Rome a few weeks ago, and you know, I don't like to spend too much time with him because he's a bit energetic. He gets a bit annoying for long periods of time. You know, keeps wanting to tell me things and ask me questions. And blah, blah, blah. So I sent him to a pasta making course in the center with some other tourists. I sent him off for the afternoon, and he took this picture. So there he's making pasta. This is the start of the lesson, by the way. Okay, this is the start of the lesson. So I'll tell this story, oh, you know, this is how you make pasta. But did you know that there is another way to make pasta? Now, during World War II, there was a ridiculously serious food shortage. And so in secret, many European powers came together, and scientists from the community, and they tried to work out how they could produce more food that they couldn't do before. So what they came up with was genetically modified spaghetti trees. And let's just see if this works. The BBC even made a fascinating documentary about them in 1957. And we're just going to watch a short extract. Just tell me, can you see and hear that? Because if you can't, we'll move on.
It isn't only in Britain that spring this year has taken everyone by surprise. Here, in the Ticino, on the borders of Switzerland and Italy, the slopes overlooking Lake Lugano have already burst into flower, at least a fortnight earlier than usual. But what, you may ask, has the early and welcome arrival of bees and blossom to do with food? Well, it's simply that the past winter, one of the mildest in living memory, has had its effect in other ways as well. Most important of all, it's resulted in an exceptionally heavy spaghetti crop. The last 2 weeks of March are an anxious time for the spaghetti farmer. There's always the chance of a late frost, which, while not entirely ruining the crop, generally impairs the flavor and makes it difficult for him to obtain top prices in world markets. But now these dangers are over, and the spaghetti harvest goes forward. Spaghetti cultivation here in Switzerland is not, of course, carried out on anything like the tremendous scale of the Italian industry. Many of you, I'm sure, will have seen pictures of the vast spaghetti plantations in the Po Valley. For the Swiss, however, it tends to be more of a family affair. Another reason why this may be a bumper year lies in the virtual disappearance of the spaghetti weevil, a tiny creature whose depredations have caused much concern in the past. After picking, the spaghetti is laid out to dry in the warm alpine sun. Many people are often puzzled by the fact that spaghetti is produced at such uniform length. But this is the result of many years of patient endeavor by plant breeders who've succeeded in producing the perfect spaghetti. And now the harvest is marked by a traditional meal. Toasts to the new crop are drunk in these poccolinos, and then the waiters enter bearing the ceremonial dish, and it is, of course, spaghetti. picked earlier in the day, dried in the sun, and so brought fresh from garden to table at the very peak of condition. For those who love this dish, there's nothing like real homegrown spaghetti.
Yeah, fantastic. Has anyone seen that before? Did you know about this? I think they stopped it in the 60s because there were some side effects. But did anyone know about these spaghetti trees? Giovanni, that's surprising as an Italian American. You know, you learn something new every day, huh? Oh, that was very interesting when I saw that. Oh, brilliant. We will move on to another plant-based question. See that it's very important to transition between your stages in a lesson. We'll move on to another plant-based question. And I just want you to consider this next image and tell me why it shows you that there was. I'll take a step back before I take a step forward. So if you remember the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster and the nuclear radiation that resulted from it in Japan, it was in 2011, I think. And this is an image of some flowers just outside this nuclear power plant, and they've been affected by the nuclear radiation. And I just want you to type what shows you in these flowers. It's quite an easy question. What shows you in these flowers? What shows you that these flowers have been affected by this nuclear radiation? Please type. I feel very lonely. Yeah, which part of the flower is deformed? They look like Dali images. Yeah. The flower. Yes, Robert. The flower. We need a botanist. What's the center of the flower? You can see that they're stuck together in a very unnatural way, like Dali's clocks. Yeah. Okay, so taking a step out of the student-teacher role, this first part is the test part. I would say that this lesson is sort of a test, teach, test structure. So that was the first test. I'm not going to tell students anything about what they've just seen just yet. Just let them agree with me and my ridiculousness. Now we're going to move on to the teach stamen. Thank you, Oakley. We're going to move on to the teach section where we look at how we can deal with these online sources. A lot of these techniques are applicable to any source of information. It could be a printed source, it could be from a book, but it's specific. I'm trying to make it specific for online sources because our students will receive such an avalanche of information every day that I think for them they really need to sort through it and try as much as possible to divide fact from fiction in online sources, because that's where they're getting so much of their information these days. So teach. So in the materials that Robert or Nadezhda will send around after the webinar, there's a lesson plan, and there are all the materials that you can download and print and use. Okay, I do it for love, not money. So the first thing we do is there's a sheet, it's a simple worksheet with some vocabulary that you pre-teach about this topic, and then 5 multiple choice questions to answer while watching the video, this TED Ed video, how to choose your news, which is fascinating. It talks about how we used to receive information, who the media gatekeepers were 20 years ago, you know, the big media corporations, and how news has been democratized, and now everybody who has a smartphone and internet access is a source of, potentially is a source of news, whether that, as you know, could be reliable or unreliable news, but everybody's free to put out information into the world, into their social media accounts. So that's the first thing we'd do. Then I'd point students towards these key questions. So I'm trying to forget the 4 C's. I'm trying to put them into the back of my mind, not to let them make me a bitter and twisted human being. You know, I don't want to be angry with the industry for putting these things out there. So I'm trying to get rid of the 4 C's, and I'm replacing them with more letters. So, but these letters have a bit more meaning to them. 1H5Ws. These are the questions that I want students to ask themselves very seriously when they get a piece of information. Okay, any questions about the questions? Because this is a very important crossroads. I agree, Gianni. It's very important because, you know, you're not just, I'm trying to tell students that they're not just consumers of information. They also need to know where to find out more if they want to. So they're not just cups that we fill up, or cups that the internet fills up with information. They also have some autonomy, and they have some they have a lot of responsibility for themselves to make sure that what they believe is based on evidence. Yes, we are not just passive. We are not just customers of information. We should also be able to engage with what we're seeing and hearing. Okay, so 10 more seconds. Any questions about the questions? Thanks, Marina. No. Silence is no. Okay, cool. Yeah, Inga, that's great. If students are taught to check other sources, that's fantastic. Whether they do it or not, I'm not always so sure. But yeah, the idea is not revolutionary. Of course, it's just that we need to try to drive it home as such. Okie doke. So moving on. So we've got these questions, right? So that would be the teach section, which would last 20 or 30 minutes in the class. We have a limited time, so here it is. And I want you to apply these questions to this image again. So anyone can answer. Fastest finger first. How was this made? Any ideas? Just 10 seconds to answer, if anyone can. How was this made? On a computer, yeah. We don't know any more than this. Who made this? Of course, we don't know. There's no source, there's no reference. We can't look at the original study. This image has just come up on our social media feed, and suddenly we have fresh information. Okay, why was this made? For fun, maybe. When was this made? Remember, let me just double check the date of the Fukushima power plant. Disaster. I think it was 2011, but this is important information. Dun, dun, dun. Bear with me. Ah, yes, 11th of March, 2011. So, when was this image made? Oakley, you're going straight to the conclusion. Play the game. To destroy the Japanese tourism industry. Oh. Okay, when was it made? Of course, we make assumptions. Could be after 2011. If it was before, how could it prove anything? Even if it was taken outside the nuclear power plant, if it was before the accident, then it doesn't prove radiation. We have no idea exactly. That's the answer. Why was this made? Well, we've talked about that. When was this made? What is it missing? Every piece of information that you could ever want. Okay, where do I go from here? How can I find out if this is just a normal flower? When was this taken? What can I do? I'm not helpless, but what can I do? Okay, so you could look for the full image. What would you Google, Oakley? What would you type in? You would not call me, especially on a Sunday. You know I don't work Sundays. Radiation flowers. But okay, so you type in radiation flowers and you get this image. Like, do you believe it again? Fake daisies Fukushima, and you might get this image, and then you might think twice. I know it might be intellectually elitist, but what if you, I don't know, find an expert, a botanist, and ask them directly, here's an image, have you ever seen anything like this before? Oh yeah, that's a common flower in South America. Da, 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 da. Oh, okay, so it's nothing to do with nuclear radiation. No, it's absolutely fine. Find an expert. I mean, a trustworthy expert, but there's just so much rubbish on Google that I don't know sometimes how you can decide. Memes. Yeah. Okay, so this is basically what we did, and these are the questions that I'd go through with students for the spaghetti tree. Okay, I'm sorry, but I lied. Who pointed you towards this information? A trusted source. That was your teacher. Your teacher is a trusted source. This is a valuable lesson because when you point out to students that you can mislead them, they start hopefully to question reliable news sources like, I don't know, Fox News. I think, okay, well, I've always thought of Fox News as a reliable source of information, just as I relied on my teacher. Maybe, just maybe, the facts that they're giving me are, if not completely falsified, at least skewed towards a particular opinion. So be careful about who you trust. Question number 2, did your peers affect your thinking? Now, I love webinars because I'm in Rome, you're in Riga or Rome or anywhere else, and we can communicate and share ideas, which is fantastic. But we do have the missing part of it, which is the social interaction part. Now, imagine in a classroom, and I've done this lesson several times with students from early teens to adults, and when a few people start to believe in the spaghetti tree, then others start to follow them, especially if these students are the influences in the group. And so peers, peer pressure. Well, if they think it's fine and they're intelligent enough, they got 10 on the test and they believe in spaghetti trees. So who am I? Who am I to go against the grain? Bandwagoning, precisely, is the word. Thank you, Robert. Question 3, did the received pronunciation of the voiceover affect its credibility? I'll answer my own question. I think it does, because, perhaps we've been programmed for many years to believe that the Queen's English couldn't possibly come out of a liar's mouth. Imagine the same words spoken without offending anyone, Scouse accent from Liverpool. So well, the spaghetti trees was there with food, and then yeah, they just produce spaghetti, and you probably wouldn't believe it. You'd be subconsciously or consciously much more suspicious of the information. But this proper British received pronunciation, speaking so calmly and with such authority. You know, that's fine. And 4, could you use your prior knowledge to verify this image? Now, a lot of my students in Italy were not having any of it. So like, no, you know, my grandmother makes pasta, okay? I know exactly how pasta is made. They've even been to the region where they've been to the region in Switzerland where the video was purporting to be filmed. Like, you know, I've been around there. I've got family there. There's definitely no spaghetti trees. There never have been. So okay, this is a tough crowd. But maybe your students in Latvia or in other countries where pasta is not such an important part of the culture would be more susceptible, shall we say, more gullible to believe this information. But can you use prior knowledge? Sometimes, but not always. I don't know about flowers, so the image of the flower, I just can't tell. Okay, so we've just done, we're sort of into the last test section. Remember, test, teach, test. We're very much into the final test section now. So this is the first time where I get the students to really analyze something new. And I'll tell you the results after you give me your reactions, but not great. So I want you to have a look and write a reaction to this. And let me just draw your attention to this piece of information. There's no logo, sure. But what would be his motivation for, possible motivation for writing this article? It's the weird R sign. Yeah. Okay. So logo, R sign, these are details. You're processing the details excellently because these are all alarms. No, this is suspicious. But what's the, if you take a step back, what's his possible motivation? Why can't we necessarily trust his charity, shall we say? Yes, Gianni, he is selling plans. He wants to make money. Not like us. He's selling, so I can't tell you how difficult it was for me to get this across to students. So I'll try and elicit it. So I'd ask a question, they just look at me for 5 minutes and say, no, don't get ya. Okay, so where does this guy work? Bank of America. Okay, good. And if millennials need help with their financial planning, where would they go? Okay, Bank of America. Good. All right. Okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. They're going to join these dots. All right. Next question. Would the Bank of America do financial planning for free? No, you have to pay, wouldn't you? Okay. So if people believe his article, will his company make a lot of money? Yeah. okay, so why can't you trust this necessarily on its own without looking into more sources? Because it might be correct, but just this, you need to put some more information alongside this, because just this is not enough. Why not? The answers I got from most students were, I don't know, because and it scares the hell out of me, especially after the 2008 financial crisis. Their answers were, because he's a bank manager, because he's the CEO of a bank, he must know a lot and we can trust him. Oh, no. We've learnt nothing. We've learnt nothing. Here we go again. And so I kept trying to reason with them. I think we got to the message in the end. The 70% figure in the bottom right of that slide is because this was there's a study with thousands of high school kids in the US, and 70%, 7 out of 10 of them could not find any reason why you might not trust this article, despite the focus of the question. Why is there one reason you might not trust this article? Despite that. And of course, when you get information normally, you don't have these warning lights flashing, ready for you to engage with them. Usually you get the information and you have to do this for yourself. So 70% could not think of one reason why a CEO of a bank would want you to spend money at the bank. So, I love grammar, but I also think that students need to learn other valuable things. And if they learn just this from me this year, then I'm a happy man. Okay, now let's look at some reliable sources. So the next slide from the Daily Mail. So this is from before I talk over it, I'll explain. This is from the case in 2007 here in Italy, in Perugia, of Amanda Knox, who was the American student who was suspected of murdering her flatmate. I don't know if that news got to Latvia, but that's the story. And this is the journalist who covered the story for the Daily Mail. So when you get serious news sources, and I know the Daily Mail, you can argue that it's not completely serious. When I see my aunt, we have this discussion regularly. She's a Daily Mail reader, and I love her dearly despite that. When you get serious news sources, semi-respected news sources, sensationalizing news like this, you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. The key question is always why? Why would you sensationalize news, sensationalize information? Because it sells, okay? Because they're making money, they're businesses, they're not charities. Their objective is to make money. So there's an excellent documentary on Netflix about this case, and you can really see how the news media hijacks the information. And Amanda Knox, who is a bit of a strange person, socially awkward, it seems, but there's no evidence that she murdered her. In fact, someone else's DNA is everywhere. So if you just look at it coldly, evidence with an evidence-based worldview, you see that it's nonsense, it's rubbish. But because she was painted as the villain, the pantomime villain in the news, people assumed that she was guilty, and they still do. Many people still do. So this is information, and you say, okay, it's only information, but we form our worldview from information that we get. So if our or our students' worldviews are being formed through lies and sensationalism, for me, it's a problem. And without going into too many details, this is why we get nearly, what was it, 51% of people voting for Brexit, because you can override logic with hatred and fear. So we need to train our students to really engage with news and really think things through properly. And this is from Fox News. Just tell me what's wrong with this. Talk to me about maths, Oakley. Can you elaborate? Okay, so to try to defend Fox News, they've basically just chosen the wrong. They've chosen the wrong form of data demonstration to show this, because of course you could choose in the questionnaire, you could choose more than one candidate, which is why you have these numbers. But choosing percentages and then putting it into a pie chart which adds up to 100, or should add up to 100, is just a joke. So yeah, so you're getting your news from these reliable sources, and for some people they're not just reliable, this is the truth. This is not a joke, this is the truth for a lot of people. So this might be a bit silly, but this isn't silly. And this isn't silly if you then spend your hard-earned cash on that. So we're coming to an end. Here's a quote from a book I've just read. So going back to 21st century skills, you know, thinking about having the right tools to wrestle with this avalanche of information is more and more important. And it gets to a point where if just to take an example, it could be anyone. If Trump says black is white and white is black, a lot of people will start to believe him. Okay, and it gets very 1984-ish. You know, truth is lies, war is peace, ignorance is strength, when you start going down that road with things that are not as trivial as black and white is black. I'm talking about important things in which we project our attitudes and our feelings towards other people based on this information. Okay, this isn't a joke to me. Another quote. Any reactions? Just type them in. Yes, Robert, it would take me about 25 years to grow a mustache like that. I haven't shaved for 3 weeks. Okay, and this is the final thought. All right. Now I know we teach and we're very busy and we've got lives, hopefully, and family and friends and all this, but you know, if something is important to you, then you should find time in the timetable to put it in there. So this is from my favorite philosopher, Dr. Seuss. So although sometimes I feel like a little salmon trying to swim upstream, I think it's important to keep trying. And doing talks like this, hopefully you use these ideas and you tell your colleagues a bit about these ideas. And I'm not the only one as well. When I send the link to my blog where the lesson plan is, at the end there's another lesson plan from another a teacher called James Taylor, and I met him through IA TEFL Association, and he's done a lesson plan on how to teach students to grapple with fake news. So hopefully these are, you know, hopefully you agree that number one, it's important enough to spend your valuable class time on, and number two, that you are capable of, even if you help 100 students, that's 100 more students that have these tools to deal with information, to wrestle with information, to be critical with what they believe. And if it's only 100 students, then that's 100 more than there would have been without you. So I really think you take responsibility for your class. You might not be able to change the world in its entirety, but we can always do something that's in our sphere of influence, wherever that may be. Okay, so any questions? Question time. Johnny has a question. I can handle 30 more seconds of silence. Thank you, Oakley. Yeah, I know. So there's a lot of information there. So really do feel free to write to me on an email or on a Facebook message or anything if you have a question later on, or tomorrow, or next week, or even next year. Yeah, great question, Johnny. Thank you. What kind of reactions did I get from students? Well, firstly, I'll just make it clear. I did this with students from 13-year-old, sort of intermediate-ish, to advanced adults. I'm talking adults with respectable positions, that work in the civil service here in Italy. So people that should hopefully be a bit more switched on. Surprise is the answer. Surprise. Shock, but also a light bulb moment to think, okay, I'm getting all this information. What can I do with it? So it was in the end, a positive reaction after initially being a bit shocked, and I was shocked at their lack of sort of what's the word? Critique of the information that they receive. What age? Now, what age should we start teaching media literacy? So you don't need to do this lesson plan from the age of 5, but if you have young ones, you should start teaching them to ask questions about the information that they receive. Girls like pink. Why is that? Okay, so they might not have the language to go into that much detail, but you can always include small ideas, even with the lower levels. I think it's really, really important for the younger kids to start developing these ideas of questioning things. Okay, not just here's some information, eat it. I mean, you can do this in many different ways, and very subtly as well. But from the age of 0, I think it's important to start questioning things. That's what my mother always said. Journey, I don't understand. Awareness? Question mark. See much difference between media literacy and critical thinking? I suppose media literacy is it's a type of critical thinking, but it's specific for information that you receive, and specifically for information you receive from the internet. Of course, it is a type of critical thinking, but critical thinking is such a vast term that for me it loses its meaning. It loses its meaning inside the 4 C's. What is critical thinking? What exactly are you talking about? Here we're talking about the massive information from the internet and really questioning what you get and being careful of your sources and why it was produced and everything like that. But yeah, it's a type of critical thinking, I'd say. No, thank you. It was a very good question. Okay, any more? So the limit was 40 minutes, but actually I got a little note halfway through to say that Zoom has extended my time to unlimited. So we really didn't have any rush, which was great. Yeah, please send me some thoughts, send me some questions. This to me now, as I said at the very, very beginning, I like doing webinars because I will learn as much from you as hopefully you've learned from me. So this is an unpolished idea. I actually asked Robert about it a couple of months ago when I was starting to form these thoughts, and he gave me some excellent ideas. So when you give me feedback or questions, like Nadej does about, is it just a type of critical thinking, then it does add to my thinking. So you're actually doing me a huge favor as well. Not just asking a question and taking up my time to answer you. It really does help getting other ideas. So I can really take something that's quite raw at the moment and polish it up nice and shiny. That's always the goal. Critical thinking is the same Greek philosophers encouraged in 400 BC. Nothing very 21st century about it. Amen to San Giovanni. Okay, guys, so thank you very, very much for attending. Your students are lucky to have you because it's Sunday lunchtime, early afternoon. It might be too cold to go out in Latvia, but the fact that you're putting in enough time and effort and commitment to attend this thing, hopefully you go a step further and actually use these ideas and let me know how they went. But in any case, it's been a pleasure, and I hope we organize another one soon. So thank you very much, and good day to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.